Welcome back to Pages of Inspiration, where we explore great works of literature and the lessons they provide. In today's video, we look into George Orwell's masterpiece, 1984, a dystopian novel that serves as a warning about the dangers of dictatorship and censorship. Before we proceed, let us take a moment to pay tribute to George Orwell, a visionary writer who fearlessly exposed the dangers of surveillance and speech censorship. Born as Eric Arthur Blair in 1903, Orwell experienced the disturbing political climate of the 20th century, which greatly influenced his writings. 1984 is set in a symbolic world ruled by three totalitarian superpowers: Oceania, the central stage of the novel, where Winston Smith, the main character of the story, lives. The capital of Oceania is London. Eurasia is the second superpower of the novel. It includes Europe and parts of Asia. And finally, East Asia, the third superpower. It includes the eastern regions of Asia, including China and Japan. These three superpowers are constantly engaged in changes of alliances and the shifting states of war and peace. Our main character, Winston Smith, lives on Oceania, a state led by a single totalitarian party and its mysterious leader, Big Brother. Citizens living in London, the capital of Oceania, do not actually know a lot. The climate is depressing. Main elements of survival like food are always scarce, and from time to time, explosions detonate inside the city of London to instill fear and remind people that Oceania is always at war. Citizens at Oceania are regularly monitored, mainly through their TVs. TVs must always be turned on so that the main party can observe and listen. Surveillance and psychological manipulation are essential tools for the party to eliminate any possible form of revolution. The novel then introduces us to the concept of doublethink. It refers to the ability to hold two contradictory beliefs at the same time. Doublethink involves the process of suppressing one's own rational thought and accepting whatever the party dictates. For example, the party might claim that war is peace, or that ignorance is strength. Citizens are expected to believe these slogans, despite the obvious contradiction. They must accept them as truth. Emotions of friendship and love cannot exist at Oceania, since all emotions must be saved for the support of the party. Winston, our main character, works at the Ministry of Truth, where historical records are constantly changed to align with the party's narrative. History has been changed too many times that no one actually knows what truly happened in the past. The party employs newspeak, a system designed to limit the range of acceptable words and vocabulary. This process eliminates critical thinking, so that the party restricts the expression of rebellious ideas. As the story continues, Winston seems to be unhappy with his life, and this is reflected in the words he writes in his diary. As time passes, Winston begins to question the party's control. He seeks truth and freedom. He embarks on a dangerous journey of rebellion and self-discovery. The story introduces us to two new characters with whom Winston builds a connection: Julia and O'Brien. Julia is a beautiful young woman. Winston has actually conflicting feelings towards her. He is fascinated by Julia, but at the same time, he is resentful since he believes he cannot have her. Also, he is afraid of Julia. He believes if he expresses his feelings, she can turn him to the police. The second character with whom Winston builds a rapport is O'Brien. O'Brien is a high-ranked person in the party, but ironically, Winston thinks that O'Brien can understand how he feels. The story takes a turn one day when Julia approaches Winston with a paper note mentioning the word, "I love you." Despite the dangers, Winston and Julia manage to go to the city's suburbs and engage in a love affair. Even love is dangerous in Oceania, as feelings cannot be expressed. This love affair becomes Winston's secret act of rebellion against the party. Winston wants to make a step further. One day, he is invited to O'Brien's house and confesses that he wants to be part of the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood is thought to be a secret resistance organization that opposes the totalitarian rule of the party. O'Brien welcomes Winston, mentioning that he himself belongs to the Brotherhood, and he gives Winston the Revolution Manual. Winston is happy. He felt that someone can finally understand him. He goes back home. He starts reading the manual, when suddenly the thought police smashes the door, arrests Winston and Julia, who happened to be with Winston. O'Brien wasn't a rebel after all. He delivered Winston to the police. Winston is tortured with the most horrible ways. He confesses everything. O'Brien then enters the room and tells Winston that the purpose of the party is full control. He should abandon reason. He should accept that 2 + 2 = 5, not out of fear, but as an act of full surrender to the party's main narrative. Winston is devastated. He even betrays Julia, the woman he loved. He asks the police to spare him and torture her instead. At the end of the novel, Winston is sitting alone in a cafe. He is listening to the main party's propaganda. Julia passes by. They ignore each other. Julia and Winston are completely crushed. The final words of the novel are that Winston loved Big Brother. The novel offers multiple lessons. First, it focuses on the erosion of personal identity. In Oceania, individuality is crushed, and people are reduced to mere elements in the party's machinery. Winston struggled to maintain his own identity, but the main party forbid him to do so. Second, the novel focuses on the dangers of extreme censorship and surveillance. In 1984, the party's all-seeing telescreens monitor every citizen's actions, words, and even thoughts. This constant surveillance instills fear and paranoia. This will inhibit any forms of resistance. Third, the novel introduces us to the power of language and dangers of propaganda in shaping public opinion and controlling narrative. The party's slogans such as "War is peace" and "Ignorance is strength" demonstrate the manipulation of language to create confusion. The novel emphasizes the need of critical thinking and the ability to discern truth from propaganda. Although written over half a century ago, Orwell's novel remains relevant today. The themes of censorship, propaganda, and the erosion of individuality continue to resonate in our modern society. As we conclude our exploration of the novel, we are reminded to strive to protect the freedom of thought and the freedom of speech. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please click the subscribe button and see you next time.